Are you looking for high-performance data storage that's easy to use yet secure enough for the Department of Defense? Look no further. Racktop Systems gives business software-defined data storage complete with embedded compliance, security, and data encryption. Don't let cyber threats, regulatory demands, or the complexity and growth of your data overwhelm your business. Racktop's high-performance data management platform gives you the tools you need to address the most demanding data challenges. Think beyond storage. To learn more, visit racktopsystems.com. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/ESW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys. Your employees, your contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observe-It combats insider threats by detecting risk activity, investigating in minutes, effectively responding, and stopping data lost. Give it a test drive at observeit.com/securityweekly. Skeleton keys, golden tickets, forged packs, DC Sync, DC Shadow. The Active Directory attack surface is expanding faster than admins can keep up with. Securing your environment begins with implementing least privilege administrative models, but does not end there. Many organizations send Active Directory syslog events to a SIM platform. However, logs are noisy, of limited scope, and are time-consuming to review and act upon. Active Directory is secure when it's clean, understood, configured properly, monitored closely, and controlled tightly. StealthBits technologies provide solutions that monitor, secure, and detect the latest threats against Active Directory. Visit them today at stealthbits.com to learn more. IT Pro TV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. Watch over 3,300 hours of content in their on-demand library on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. IT Pro TV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with IT Pro TV for teams by visiting itpro.tv/securityweekly and start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off standard or premium IT Pro TV memberships using the code SECWeekly30. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. Just a couple of quick announcements. Make sure you check out our on-demand material, securityweekly.com/on-demand. The latest one in the on-demand archive is on endpoint security, the state of endpoint security, so make sure you check that out. We mentioned it briefly in our previous segment, so a whole lot more on endpoint security on the on-demand programming. Also on June 14th from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Is a webcast with Logarithm. This is accompanying the recent survey we did. And basically, we'll answer some of the questions about how do you feel about user and entity behavior analytics? What about your SIM? To learn about the answers to those questions and what our poll results were and some analytics into them, tune in on June 14th. It's sure to be a fun time. Alrighty. So we're going to dig into the enterprise security news. John and Eric are here with me in studio from Racktop Systems. John Strand is still on the lines via Skype. We're going to talk about Malwarebytes has completed a deal to acquire Binisoft, who, from what I gather, allows you to manage the Windows firewall, which is something that I thought Microsoft probably should have provided.
Yeah, should have. I mean,
I'm kind of confused.
Paul, who would have possibly thought that running NetSH ADV firewall set all profile state on was too hard?
Right? Do you need a vent? Isn't that just? Is it just me, John? I don't understand what Binisoft's value was to this problem. Like, in the problem being like I can't effectively manage my Windows firewalls. I don't.
Well, I will say that, all joking aside, the Windows firewall is a train wreck.
Okay.
It's horrible, but you should turn it on anyway. And any AV vendor out there worth their salt, from McAfee to Symantec to Sophos, they all have the ability to enable a firewall with that product. So I honestly look at this as Malwarebytes needed to have that capability for firewall management. They didn't have it. Their competitors had it. Binisoft gives them that capability in their product, and that's the move.
I think that's some great analysis. And there are, and recently I was learning about Edgewise. This story kind of reminded me of Edgewise. Have you heard of Edgewise before? it's kind of sort of like that firewall management on endpoints, but it takes it to the application and port layer, right? If you're familiar with Edgewise, John? Yeah. So I kind of thought of that like, if this is a problem and you're looking into it, you should probably consider Edgewise and look into that as it hits it more in the application
more comprehensive.
layer. Yeah.
Well, and it just, for the people that want to do it on the cheap, you can actually do it with NetSH ADV firewall, where you can actually restrict it down to applications, not just ports as well. I wonder how many of these products are just really wrappers for things that are really hard to do with Microsoft under the hood.
You know, I think there's a whole subset of the industry in security, John, that is exactly what you just described, right? Like Microsoft doesn't make it easy enough, so there are vendors that can help you with that. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. Lastline is. Anyone heard of Lastline before?
No.
I've heard of the name.
No.
So I'm not really sure what they do or what makes them different, and I had to really dig. The press release didn't give me enough information. I did some digging on their website. They basically say they automatically collect and analyze isolated events from the perimeter network and endpoint tools to deliver high-fidelity alerts, categorize and consolidate actively to link malicious behavior to define the scope of the attack in a unified view, which is a very general statement, triages threat activity from across the network to identify high-risk incidents. I feel like there's like a few hundred vendors that pretty much that description could fit. And what I struggle with is I want to know what makes Lastline better. And that's kind of my call to usually some random vendor and every single show. Like, you could have the best solution on the planet. I didn't get that from reading the press release or your website. So please let us know. I want to know what your differentiators, because they could do something really awesome. That description is very generic, as you well know, John, right?
So I got a question for you on this, Paul. There was a paragraph that was interesting to me. It said, he pointed out Lastline continues to experience very high growth, increasing revenue by approximately 80% in 2017 over 2016. This was achieved in part by our successful Series C round of funding, which raised $28.5 million. Now,
wow.
Are they using their funding as revenue?
No, probably.
I don't think
if they took a Series C, likely they have customers. I don't think you get to Series C and 28 million without having paying customers.
But it says
which goes back to my original point.
By their Series C funding, it's like what?
If they have customers, someone's using them and liking them, and I want to know why right. You like them, right? Because it hasn't come across our radar yet. I haven't done a briefing with them, so I thought it was interesting. They came with a news feed, and there's a lot of security companies out there, and like I said, they could be awesome. Customers, obviously they have them. I'd love to know what they do differently, especially differentiating yourself in this space is really hard, right? I mean, because John, you and I do active countermeasures. Some of what we do is it could be covered by that messaging, right? I want to see the differentiated messaging. So I had an article in here about Duo security, and I thought they made some interesting moves lately. It kind of, and I don't want to start rumors, right? But I was just amazed first how successful Duo has been in the market, and I likely think their exit could be the next step is preparing for IPO. And the reasons that I'm theorizing, and I don't have any insider information, I'm not giving stock tips, I'm just basically celebrating the success of Duo because it's a very successful company. And so they raised $70 million in Series D. They're over $1 billion valuation. Surpassed $100 million in annual reoccurring revenue. Like, congratulations, that's phenomenal. They appointed a chief financial officer and recently just appointed their first CMO, Neville Letzerich, who has a background basically WebSense and such. So
serious background.
Yeah, some experienced people holding C-level positions now. Could also mean that their likely next exit or their likely exit could be IPO. I think they're going to probably be the next company IPOing in our space, or one of the next.
Yeah, we use Duo. It's pretty easy. It's been it's a small kind of per user two-factor, multi-factor authentication solution. So it's interesting. What I think is also interesting though is how you stay in the mix, because in the end, any sort of MFA should be kind of just a transparent,
right,
seamless thing. So how do you stay sticky?
Yeah. And to speak of the marketing of Duo, and I've seen various marketing efforts, branding efforts from Duo, and they do a great job. The one that resonated me the most was there was a case study about a university that had a big breach and rolled out Duo and kind of chronicled how they did it. I worked in education space before. I know the unique challenges that environment can provide. And it was just a great story. And I was like, wow, that's like the best piece of marketing that I've seen in a really long time. Because now I'm like, yeah, I could recommend that to people because that article showed someone with a problem, solving that problem. And to speak to your point, John, and your messaging as well, like made it easy to implement, deploy that solution.
Well, and sometimes that's all it takes, right? Like, if a product doesn't work in this space, I hear people scream about it. They say that product was ungangly, it was horrible, it was a nightmare to implement. But whenever something works, people just get kind of quiet. And you ask them, like I ask a lot of our customers use Duo. This is one of those vendors that we see consistently in our penetration tests. And it's amazing whenever I talk to the customers, I'm like, hey, what do you think of Duo? They pretty much say, it works.
Right.
And that's about as much praise as you get out of a lot of our customers when they're talking about security products. But this is one that we continue to see. They continue to be implementing it all over the place. And I think it's just because it flat out works. That's all it really needs to do at the end of the day.
Fireman is set to acquire Lumeta. Lumeta is a New Jersey-based provider of cyber situational awareness solutions, and they deliver a complete real-time visibility into the extended network and across all connected endpoints. Not quite sure how they do that. I don't know if anyone here has heard of Lumeta before.
Their website scares the hell out of me. It's got a very, very creepy dude. It's got yellow eyes. He looks an evil villain.
There is, yeah.
It's not healthy.
They use the word real time a lot, which it's in their title, it's in their description, it was in their press release. I always think back to this moment in my life when I was sitting in a classroom and Stephen Northcutt was the professor, the teacher, and we were talking about intrusion detection systems. And he's like, a lot of people are saying they do it real time. And he like drew a graph of like time, and he's like, here's real time. Here's the closest you can get to real time in your alerts. It's not the same thing as real time. I don't know. That just stuck with me. And every marketing department I've ever worked with, whenever they bring up real time, I'm like, maybe near real time is the closest. Like I'll get to blessing. So some advice when you do your marketing, right? Real time is not looked upon favorably by the security community, and they use that a lot. And they're trying to
eliminate 100% of your blind spots, and that's
100%. 100% and real time in your marketing is interesting. And I'm not sure the details of the acquisition were undisclosed. And as we know, and we talk about on Business Security Weekly, there can be a lot of speculation about what was the reason for that exit via acquisition. Sometimes it's a great thing, and I talk to even friends of mine that have companies have been acquired, and they're like, it's awesome, dude. And I know they're not just like telling me that. They're like, no, it's a great situation. And then you look at other ones, and you're like, oh, that was an acqui-hire, as we call it, right? Or we're just buying for the technology. We've seen acquisitions where like basically the entire team is wiped out except for a few of the researchers. So hopefully this is a positive acquisition. And Fireman's a much bigger player in the space. And I think one of those players that's really trying to diversify, because I really think that the crux of the issue is that firewall policy management is kind of boring now. And so people want something else, right? John, have you heard of Varonis before?
Yes, I've actually seen Varonis in a couple of engagements. It's not actually completely instrumented, but it was on.
So what do they do?
They do a lot of that data loss prevention and also kind of tracking where data is, especially in the cloud. That's what we've seen it. But like I said, as far as it actually being turned on and stopping anything, not yet.
Gotcha.
But that's not to say it's bad or good. It's just people are standing it up and basically trying to get it running.
Yeah, they were presenting in InfoSec Europe, which I believe is happening this week. Is that this week? I think that's this week.
It's another security con because we need more of those.
Yeah, it's like the RSA of Europe, right? And then there's B-Sides London, which happens around the same time or immediately following or in front of that. So Varonis says that they can analyze security from the perimeter by analyzing devices such as DNS, VPN, and web proxies to detect security events. What I like is they gave examples. Usually when we read some of the stuff, like they just stop there.
High level.
But they say brute force attacks, DNS tunneling, and credential stuffing. which are all techniques that you use in your pen test, John. So I thought that was interesting, and you said you saw them on a pen test. So
They were actually, I think, one of our customers. The reason why they went with Varonis, or one of the reasons why, is one of the salespeople at Varonis actually mapped what Varonis does, and they mapped it against the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and they said these are all the different components that we work in, and that as somebody that's in the security vendor space as well, that's actually a pretty good marketing technique. So it was kind of a neat approach.
Awesome. This next company called InAuth looks like a competitor to Duo, which I'm not necessarily sure I'd want to be a competitor to Duo. Although everyone finds their niche in the space, certainly. And they have enhanced their two-factor authentication. They say, email and SMS is insecure, and they're able to add a mobile app and strong customer authentication for payment authorizations, logging into accounts, bank transfers, account changes. It sounds like you're more on the provider side rather than the end user side with InAuth, which is probably how they're differentiating.
But it's kind of weird. They say that they don't really like to do the SMS or the other application one, but they do have something okay, great, PIN, and then ownership. So you have to have a specific mobile phone, and then something you have with the biometric. So I'm wondering if they actually integrate with like the fingerprint scanner on like your Android device or on your iPhone as well, which is kind of neat.
I guess, I know LastPass does that. LastPass will just go right off your fingerprint. What I find more interesting in the authentication space is, and we did an interview with one of the founders, and I think there's maybe 2 or 3 companies in the space that I know of, and probably more. But his technology could look at how you hold your phone. It looked at maybe the applications you're running on your phone. It looked at what Bluetooth devices you're connected to, what Wi-Fi networks are in range, and basically said, yeah, like you're cool to authenticate, right? So the user doesn't have to remember passwords and PIN codes and two-factor authentication. It was sheerly like machine learning and to a certain extent artificial intelligence that was figuring out that this user is who they claim to be, which is what you're doing in the authentication process, based on all those environmental factors on your phone. I think that is the future. I think that's where we need to be with authentication. And when I see messaging that, as John was reading from this company, talks about basically the traditional methods, I'm like, that's kind of not where it's at, right?
Right. It's that seamless. The user doesn't have to be bothered, right? It's just like Duo. They don't want it. It works. They don't think about it unless there's a problem. Right. And so you just want to have it. Yeah, I saw one similar to that with ambient sound. It would just turn your phone on to see if it matched, and it looked like you were with your phone and all that kind of stuff.
That is another factor as well.
That's not creepy at all.
There have been some creepy stories around listening.
I have gone through my Alexa history just recently just to see what was happening.
I did. I made a Facebook post about my shopping list, and because we have one of my devices here in the studio, so when my friends visit, I had some very interesting things on my shopping list. Including daughter. Like I don't know if my wife was trying to order a daughter. We have 3 boys. I get it. We both want a girl and all, but I don't know if she's trying to order that on Amazon. So this final article that I had here wasn't related to a vendor, but I talked about 6 ways third parties can trip up your security. And in the survey with the Ponemon Institute, which you all know how Jack Daniel feels about that, whatever, but one big issue of the survey respondents identify is the lack of visibility into the security status of third-party networks and systems. And third parties have access to increasing amount of enterprise data. More than half of the respondents in the survey have no inventory of all the external people accessing their networks and data. Well, how nicely does that tie into your messaging?
I could help them with that.
Yes. So it's maybe one you want to check out. They did the survey. Yeah. And typically these surveys are sponsored. We did a sponsored survey for Logarithm, certainly. And it's all about how you ask the questions, right, in the survey. And I feel like sometimes they ask questions that are self-serving to whoever's sponsoring it. But that aside, this is a problem. And we didn't talk about it in the context of your data security as it relates to a third party. Like we talked about a user who's purposely sharing out some data. But what if a third party needs direct access to your data?
Yeah, you have to come up with a way to limit their exposure, right? You don't want them throughout your network. You only want to expose exactly what you want to expose. You want to be able to control and audit that. You know, I've always used the analogy of your home alarm and a safe, right? you're going to have a home alarm that's going to prevent intruders, but you're going to let people that you don't trust as much in your home. And so they're going to be walking through your house, whether it's, a handyman or babysitter or whatever. So you're going to keep your, valuables maybe in a safe, and we're kind of that safe for your data. So you want to protect that.
It's actually a great analogy. I'm usually not a fan of the home security analogy, but in that case, I thought that's perfect analogy for what we're talking about here. Yes. So I have this talk that I'm working on in the back of my head that's the best ways to use analogies, the right and wrong ways to use analogies in security, because we've all seen the analogies, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, right. Sometimes it's somewhere in between, right? So, John, anything else to add?
Nope, I'm good.
And you're around for the entire summer.
Yes, I'm around right up until Sandsfire, and then right up until Sandsfire, and then I go from Sandsfire to Black Hat to DEF CON, and it gets kind of crazy again.
Awesome. Well, Eric and John, the John here in studio, thank you for appearing on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. John Strand, thank you as always. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching to this edition of Enterprise Security Weekly. We'll see you next time.